Austin here, and for this episode, I've got Mike Freeman with me, who is the owner of Fourth Moon Toys, which, if you don't know the reference, is a Star Wars reference. So he's selling authentic, old when I was a kid, from the 70s and early 80s Star Wars toys, and not all the new stuff. So it's very rare, scarce items that are in high demand by collectors. And he's had this business going for a little bit, and he's actually got quite a bit of revenue flowing through it and a good customer base. So let's welcome Mike to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me.
So, Mike, can you just give me a quick little 1-2 minute update on how you got started? What is the background? Explain the Fourth Moon reference for those who don't know what it is,
Sure.
and where you're at today in your Shopify store.
Okay, yeah. So Fourth Moon in Star Wars, the end of Star Wars, when the Death Star is coming in to blow up the Rebels, their base is on the fourth moon of the planet Yavin. So I went with that. I kind of wanted a name that wouldn't trigger any trademark issues down the road. And Lucas and Disney, really like their terms, and they've trademarked like every single word in the Star Wars universe.
Yep.
So I tried to go with something that hardcore fans would recognize immediately, but that didn't say Star Wars in it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you've got a little bit of a Star Wars-ish icon, although the 4 and the N aren't Star Wars, but the M definitely is.
Yeah. I was lucky to get a designer who was a Star Wars fan to do my logo. So he kind of got it, and I really like it. I've been collecting Star Wars stuff myself for a long time. I started to sell stuff. I kind of always sold stuff, but I started getting serious in order to fund my own collecting and not have it be an issue of the household money going towards these old toys. Then about 18 months ago, I decided to do it full time and really focused full time on doing it, and set up the Shopify store, and I sell a lot through Facebook, and Instagram is growing as well. I don't actually use eBay hardly at all. I use it for buying, but not for selling. And so in the last 18 months, it's really grown. I have a very loyal group of customers. So once I get a customer, the kind of ease of buying and avoiding scams and the pitfalls and stuff, people tend to really like to continue buying from me. So I really like that, and I like being part of the community as well. So people know who I am and that I own this store. I interact as myself on Facebook and do selling there that goes back in through the store. But I'm trying to build the brand of the store so people know about it.
So you went full time 18 months ago, and you were doing part time before that?
Yeah.
And what triggered you? Because that's a big commitment, right? To make this your whole livelihood. Was there some trigger 18 months ago that did you hit a revenue number, or some life event happen? Why was that the time you went full time?
Well, my wife and I had taken some time off because she had a series of surgeries she had to have. And we had a 5-year-old daughter at the time. And then shortly after that, we had twins. So we had taken,
that's a lot of work.
We had taken some time off to kind of focus on the family. And then when we were kind of getting out of that, it was time to, get a job or bring money in some way and fashion. And, I kind of had the time to try it out. And, in my mind was like, if this doesn't work after 6 months, if it's not, I built the spreadsheet with like some projection numbers. And I was like, if this isn't going to be working after 6 months, I'll go and find a real job, or I can even look for a real job while I'm doing this. But I was able to keep growing. And like, I think of those numbers I put in that spreadsheet at the beginning, and like, I was selling a couple $1,000s a month in sales. And so the thought of getting to those numbers seemed kind of impossible, but it was kind of cumulative, kind of, 10 to 20% growth month over month. It adds up. And I was able to get it to a point now where it is, my full-time income.
Yep. That's awesome. And, there's a lot of expressions for it, right? The one that I love is, it's a marathon, not a race, or not a sprint kind of thing. And
Yeah.
half of success is literally just showing up every day. You got to do the right stuff, but
Yeah.
it just takes time. And a lot of people get frustrated or anxious or whatever and bail out before they get to see the payback of all the energy they put in the early days.
Yeah, and that's also one of the reasons I avoid eBay is because you're not building anything. It's a lot
Yep.
of one-off sales. So you don't have access to your customers and stuff like that.
Yep.
And that's why email marketing for me is my biggest revenue source by far.
Yep. Now, what is like the biggest challenge for you in your business right now?
My biggest challenge is getting inventory.
That's what I
Uh,
was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, so unlike most Shopify stores where you can order 1,000 of any particular item,
Yep.
uh, I'm always scrounging to find items to sell. So I'm buying childhood collections or older collectors who are getting out of it, or buying pieces here or there, or even now buying from my own customers who, have stuff they no longer want, and so they want to sell it to me in exchange for store credit or for cash. So getting people to sell me their stuff is the biggest thing. I price my things at a market price, which is kind of to me one of my differentiators. A lot of people price things really high and they expect you to negotiate down and do this dance and all that. I price it at market prices, and my stuff sells very quickly. So the selling, I always want to do more selling, certainly, but the most time and effort goes into buying stuff.
So in the supply demand curve, where most people have infinite supply and they have to worry
Yeah,
about demand, you have the exact opposite problem, where there's plenty of demand,
yeah.
and your challenge is meeting their needs with supply.
Yeah, exactly, and
That
be
is,
consistent.
yeah, that is unique, right? And I
Yeah,
can totally see where well, I can totally see in the future where you might get some really rare product and you might auction that off. And you start setting market price, but I could easily see you getting the
yeah,
whatever thing, right? And saying, "All right, folks, this I have an audience of all of you that already said you want this. Let's do a little bidding here."
yeah. That's something actually I've considered, like for the next year, is moving to more of an owned auction scenario with high bid or something like that, or if there is Shopify plugins that allow it, where I can own the auction experience maybe once a month for some of those higher end items.
Yep. No, I can see that being a great way to increase profit, right?
Hmm.
Because you've got that limited supply, so you got to maximize per transaction, which not a lot of people have that problem, right? A lot of
Yeah,
people make it up in scale. You cannot make it up in scale.
yeah, and like a lot of the advice in Shopify circles is about discounting and
Yep.
doing stuff like that to get sales, and for me, that's just leaving money on the table because I'm
Yep.
going to sell that item at full price eventually.
Yep.
So I need to kind of figure out different ways to up order values or get new customers in.
Yeah. Yeah. And increasing average order value. A lot of people focus on that one really quickly.
Hmm.
And the first question I was asking myself is that the right thing to be focusing on, right?
Yeah.
Or is it actually customer lifetime value, right? And
Yes.
for you, my gut tells me customer lifetime value is a way more important metric to be focused on than AOV.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I have people. I send out a Friday email, and I have people who buy almost every week. So
Yep.
that could be a $50 item, it could be a $500 item, but
Yep.
they're not necessarily checking out the site every day. But when that email hits on Friday, they go in, pick out a couple things, and buy it.
What are you using for email?
I use Clavio or
Oh, nice.
Clavio,
Okay.
however you pronounce it.
I use both pronunciations all the time.
Okay,
I don't think anybody knows the proper pronunciation.
yeah,
Um, that's because I like Clavio a lot. I also see you're using Judge Me for reviews, which I like a lot. So
yeah.
you've got the right tools in your toolbox too, which is really nice.
Well, a
So
lot of that comes from advice from your podcast, probably. Judge me for sure. Yeah.
yeah, oh, Judge Me. I don't know how they do it because it used to be reviews were expensive. And then
Hmm.
all of a sudden, Judge came along and said, for $20 a month or whatever their flat fee is,
Yeah.
unlimited reviews. And to me, it just changed the review world overnight, right?
Yeah.
Um, really disruptive business model on their side. But that's why I use them because
Yeah.
it's costs are very predictable.
And so easy to use. Like you set it up, and it I've just never had a problem. It just does its thing.
Yep, yep. And I see you got 180 reviews already. And a lot of your comments are about your service, right?
Yeah.
And like you throw extra freebies in the bag, and people delight about that. And it's interesting to see. I love reading reviews to really understand what customers value about you.
Yeah.
And this is true for a lot of stores. They talk a lot about the service, and your customers are definitely doing that same thing, where they could get this product in a number of different places, but they're buying from you because of the trust and
Yeah.
brand you've established, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And just making it easy for folks, like a lot of people buy off eBay, but eBay is kind of like a crapshoot, right? Because you don't know who's selling it. It could be some random guy who
Yep.
found something in his basement, and he's going to stick and I've had this happen, $1,000 action figure that's never been opened for 40 years. And someone sticks it in not even a bubble envelope, but just like a regular envelope, sticks it in
Yep.
the mail and sends it out. And it's eBay. You can get your refund and all that stuff. But for us Star Wars collectors, it actually it hurts our heart when something like that
Yes.
gets damaged,
Yep.
because they don't exist. So just things like that really helps me build loyal repeat customers, that they know their expectations, and that there's always going to be a happy unboxing experience. And
Yep.
I focus on that too. I have my own boxes with my logo on them, just stamped on them for
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, for the small stuff. For the bigger stuff, I'm grabbing boxes wherever I can.
Yep.
But for the small stuff, I do that. I have a thank you note, a freebie, and a branded sticker that goes in every package. So it's like an actual. People aren't used to a real retail experience when buying vintage Star Wars. They're used to a hobbyist experience.
Yep.
So I try and give them kind of the same experience, like almost like an Apple Store like unboxing experience.
Yep. Absolutely. And like I have one client, I'll show you here, Authentic Vintage Posters.
Yeah,
Um, and they have very similar to you, but their inventory is even way older, right? Some of their stuff
yeah,
is hundreds of years old. But one of the things that we did, let me see if I can find it real quick. So this has been here, the owner of the store.
hmm
And one of the things that he did was, because people in his reviews talked about the shipping and the quality of the shipping and how it was packed. So yeah, so he recorded a video which just showed
yeah,
how he packed his posters, right?
yeah,
And like the care he put, because some of his posters are a couple $1,000s, and
hmm
the last thing you want is an extra little tear to be added to the poster.
yeah,
Which is so he goes through, like, here's how we wrap it, we bubble wrap it, we triple wrap it, and here's
yeah.
what the end caps look like, and yada yada, because that is so important to people.
It
And it
is.
just
Yeah,
shows that he understands what they care about, right?
yeah,
And I'm a huge fan of video, and this is nice for you. I would challenge. I did the same thing with Vin. I actually challenged him one day. I was like, I want you to create your first video before
hmm
we talk again, and he did the next day, and I was like
yeah,
so impressed. Like, he set it up on a tripod. It's really nicely done. Like, and now it's just keep creating more. And I could see for you the same sort of tutorial video where, like, this is how
yeah,
we package your product, right? We're going to
yes,
take extra good care of it, right? This baby's 60 years old, or it's 40 years old for most of your stuff, and it's not going to get any more damage, getting shipped out to you, kind of thing.
yeah. I know video is definitely on my to-do list for 2022, and there's with my business too. There's a very kind of defined customer journey when someone becomes a collector.
Yep.
And they usually start out with the loose figures and doing that run, that's my loose run right behind me there,
Yep.
which is 99 figures and is about $7,000 minimum if you do that whole run. So I know I need to do video too, towards new collectors, because when I get one of those customers in, their lifetime value is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you build your brand and reputation, right? And this is the stuff you're already doing. Your reviews show it. You're trying to be known as a person, a human
Mhm.
being who
Yeah.
has street cred, is legitimate, and cares, and
hmm
is going to be your customer's partner in their collector journey with Star Wars, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm going to shift gears right now. I'm going to turn and look at your site,
All right.
and first thing I'm going to say is, if you agree with what I just said, your site does not match that yet, right? And
Yes.
that
Yes.
is, you are not coming across yet enough, in my humble opinion, right?
Yeah.
as the friendly, caring, passionate, expert guy that you appear to be, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so all of my thinking right now is about how to establish even more brand, because your branding is great, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, your custom logo and all that kind of stuff. There's consistency here. The fact that you're shooting so many photos for a product you can only sell once is amazing, right? You got a $40 figure here, the Emperor sealed baggie, and you took 3 photos of him, and you're only making $40 off of that. That's
Yeah.
not that's revenue. Like, so your photography and your treating of the products is really well done. And it's just one of those costs of your business is you have to do a photo shoot for every single unit that you sell, which is just
Yes.
you know mind-boggling for most store owners to conceive of, right?
Yeah.
And you're doing a really great job at that, right? So your store is very product focused right now,
Exactly. Yeah.
which is not a bad thing. It's a great place to start, right? So
Mhm.
let's talk about your first problem, which is the fact that you don't have a lot of inventory and some things are sold out.
Yeah.
Um, I'm looking at a collection page right now. I'm not seeing a sold out on this collection page.
I used to have sold outs on those,
Yep.
and I removed them across a lot of the site because, um, I was trying to do that balance of like, oh, stuff does sell out quick, so buy it now. But when you go into a collection and there's 5 items available and 25 items sold out,
Yeah.
uh, it looks even worse. And I
Well,
think one
well,
thing I need to fight against is just even that this is an active site, because in my niche there's sites that come and go and sites that
yep.
stay up but aren't running businesses anymore.
Yep.
So I need to, I don't want everything to look sold out. Uh, so that's, yeah, a balance. I don't know where to land on exactly.
Well, I forget what was the watch, movement watches, right? They were famous for every one of their collection pages
Mhm.
showed one product sold out,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Which is a complete lie, right?
Yeah.
It's just a marketing tool.
Yeah.
And you can say that's pretty slick and savvy. It creates that sense of urgency and all that. Which that's a new product, right? So that best practice I wouldn't apply to your store. I think
Mhm.
it's clear to all of your customers how small your inventory is. Now,
Yeah.
you could take that to the next level and on a product page, right? So let's go into a product page. You could here say, this is one of one.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what this means, category one coin.
Oh,
But
that's just the rarity.
yeah, yeah. So, on like this collection or this store over here,
Yep.
where she's selling ancient beads, right? She's the exact same problem you do.
Yeah.
Actually, her problem is even worse because most likely on the Rita Okrant store, when she has this, 5,000-year-old bead, she's not
Yeah.
ever getting another one back, right? This is the only one that's going to exist. So what we do here is we actually have a product seal, one
Yeah. I
of
like
one
that.
unique piece, right?
Yeah.
And we've also got some other product seals where it's like a rare find and that kind of stuff. So we use product seals to visually reinforce the inventory.
Hmm.
On another store here, the Game Steward, they're pre-selling board games, and they have a limited inventory, right? Because it's a
Yeah.
pre-sale of a Kickstarter. So if they, let's say they get 100 of them to the Kickstarter, that's all they've got is 100. Just like you talked about, you don't want discounts. These
Yeah.
guys are the same way. It's like we only have a limited inventory. Like discounting doesn't make sense. But what
Mhm.
we do here is we have an almost gone page.
I
Now, for
see.
these guys, they're doing, bulk quantities of 100 or whatever. So the
Mhm.
almost gone is just a collection that shows everything in their store that has 3 or less inventory. And the great thing is every time I look at this page, the number of games is different, right?
Yeah.
So this actually drives sales. So these are the ones with only one left. We say only one left, right? A little farther down, we'll say only 2 left. And a little farther down, we'll say only 3 left, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
being really clear with the scarcity of your product, you can do that in multiple ways and multiple times. You should absolutely do it. I wouldn't do it in your store with sold out products on the page, right? I got to a couple places where even because what you're doing is you have variants. You'll have
Yeah.
5 of one toy, and those are variants in your Shopify store,
Yeah.
which
So
is
especially in figures, if you go to any of the figures there, um, so yeah, like most of those figures will have, yeah. So this guy's got 3 variants, 2 of which are sold out at the moment. So basically, I leave that guy with 3 variants, and when I get a new one in, I take the pictures, I pick probably that top one I'll replace. I'll delete those images, upload the new images, adjust the SKU number, which isn't shown to the customer, but is how I pick and pack. And then that top one will turn into not being sold out. And then I just leave the extra sold one there just because it's too much work going through and deleting them all the time.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. There's no perfect answer here, right?
Hmm.
Um, so let's take a step back for a second. This Kenner toy set, um, I assume this is for like one of the movies. It says Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
How many toys did Kenner make? How many figures did they make for Empire Strikes Back?
So for Empire would be about 30-ish
Yeah.
figures.
So one of the things, if I was you, I would definitely add to your store because right now you're
Mhm.
very this is what we have
Yeah.
focused, um, and which is makes total sense, right? You can't sell what you don't have. But think
Yeah.
about this for a second. Imagine a page that showed all 30 of the Kenner Empire Strikes Back toys that
Mhm.
are in the universe. And
Yeah.
that's a very known number for you, right? You're in
Yeah.
control of that knowledge. So you go to that collection page and it show you which ones you have in stock.
Yeah.
And the ones you don't have in stock, people can opt in for when you do have it in stock, right? So
Yeah.
you're using Klaviyo today, but you're not using it for back in stock email notifications.
Yes, and that's because of the variant issue. I actually talked to their support, and what I understood was that uh, the out of stock is tied to an actual variant. So as I say, I will go in and replace one of these variants, but I think my customers would like an out of stock notice whenever a new, say, a new 21B, this figure is added, even if there is one there and it's not necessarily out of stock. Because I have some people who are looking for mint perfect
Yep.
figures that are obviously higher price, and then other people that are different spots along that scale. So I may only have one that's in okay condition, and a customer who's very specifically looking for that pit figure in mint condition. I'd love to have them be able to submit for out of stock, and then anytime a new one is added to it, they get an email.
Yeah, and as you get deeper into Klaviyo is really powerful and has lots of cool things you can do with it.
Yeah.
But there's also real limits that you cannot get past, kind of thing. And every time I do a Klaviyo invitation, we always hit those limits. So you gotta play with that toolbox and use the facilities that it gives you.
Yeah.
And all the dream scenarios, you just gotta let them wash away, kind of thing. But that said, your scenario, you could easily make a list. Right. So right now, the back in stock functionality, which I love in Klaviyo, I think for most of your situations, you're going to want that on your product page for
Yeah.
when your product is sold out. Right now, for when your product's not sold out, I use accordions all the time. I would have
Yes.
more content underneath here. Right.
Yeah, especially for mobile. Like I don't love my site on mobile necessarily, and that's
Yeah, yeah. Well, so one of my accordions, right, that I would add is, do you want to get notified when we have a mint condition one of these?
Hmm.
Right. And you can build a list, right? Now, this is a lot of work. Everything I'm saying, by the way, is a lot of work, right? To set
Yeah.
up all hey, I know there's, this many toys for Empire and this many for Force Awakens or whatever, which ones you're doing,
Yeah.
right? It's all a lot of work to set it all up. But what I see down, because you have collectors, right?
Yeah.
And let's say I decide I'm going to be a collector. And if this is not the way your customers work, let me know. But I'm assuming a collector's going to go, I want the entire series of Kenner 12-inch Empire Strikes Back figures. And that's what I'm going to focus my energy on for the next 3 years. Right?
Yeah.
And you come to your one page, it shows all 30 and only
Yeah.
5 are in stock today. But they
Yeah.
can go onto your page and see the other 25 that are not in stock
Yeah.
and sign up with the back in stock. So when you do get one,
Mhm.
then you can go, all right, now I've got one of these. The back in stock automatically goes out. So I have clients that when they do this,
Mhm.
all of a sudden they have this new intelligence about their audience they never had before. And that's
Yeah.
not what they're buying. It's what they want.
What they
So
want. That would be huge.
you go to your back in stock
Mhm.
report, which will tell you by product what people are signing up for.
Yeah.
And you see the number one thing on the list, there's 400 people that signed up for this R2D2 rare thing from blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to go get that product.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm going to spend more than I normally would because I got 400 people who are going to bid for it now, and I'm going to auction the thing off to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you have this information about not just what you have that people are buying, but what you don't have that people want to buy.
Yeah.
And I can see that being super powerful. And then everybody's opting into these back in stock notifications.
Mm-hmm.
And the second you drop that product, right?
Yeah.
And you could drop that product and have some sort of auction functionality. So the 400 people that signed up,
Mm-hmm.
they come to that product page and it's like, the buy now price is $25,000, or, put in your bid price kind of thing. And that would be some custom code or an app we'd have to figure out. But you totally do functionality like that. And if, in your back in stock, only 2 people signed up for it, then it's not an auction product, right?
Yeah.
And you can use that demand to determine, do you just launch it as a product or do you launch it as an auction?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the kind of low tech way now that I do that in a way is I do a Friday newsletter where I kind of focus all my new inventory, although I do add some during the week, especially figures get added on Friday, every Friday. And I did that because I could kind of see that people were like, unsure where new products were or what had been added most recently. So that way on Fridays, I can be like, all right, I just added 50 new figures. So chances are the one you want is there right now if you go quick and buy it. And so that's kind of my low tech way for doing it. So maybe even before I get into the full redesign of the site and can custom code something like that, even just having that newsletter sign up right on that product page in an accordion would be a step up.
Well, you definitely want that, but you also want the back in stock.
Yeah.
So that, exactly what they want. Getting them to sign up for the generic one is great. Nothing wrong with that at all. Getting them to sign up for the generic one and tell you what they're interested in is even better, right?
Yeah.
So, basically you want to be collecting email addresses all the time in any way that you possibly can, right?
Yeah.
And do you have an email pop up on your site? I don't remember seeing
I do have one that pops up like on about an 80% of the page scroll or something.
Does it tell you that every Friday you're going to get a newsletter with what's new? Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So on this product page, right, I'm debating in my head whether this is one product with 3 SKUs or 3 products separate, right? Because you've got that problem of each individual unit technically could be the same SKU, but it's not because they're different conditions, right?
Yeah, and people want to buy. They want to buy the exact one they're seeing. Right?
Yes. I don't like the scratch on that one. I want the one without the scratch, and that totally makes sense, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I would consider, because one of the things you don't really go into detail that I'm seeing is the condition, right? And I would actually rate the condition and show. So if we look at the poster one, right? If I go into one of his posters, I'm just gonna pick a random one here.
I've actually been on their site looking at Star Wars posters before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is a new redesign I did a couple months ago. I love this site. I love the dark background. But here you can see condition, very good, minor border wear and tear. So we're very clear about what the condition of this product is. Now, we don't get, you notice we didn't make it a product seal. We debated that.
Yeah.
And the reason we didn't in this one is this is the only one available, right? We didn't want to scare people away with the not mint ones because a lot of people are very satisfied with their not mint posters because it's the only one available. These are even rarer than the stuff you guys are selling.
Yep.
So and that's why I always tell people, it's like, you got to think about your business and your customer and make decisions. You just can't look at what a different business does in a different industry and copy it, right? You got to look at it and use that as ideas. And then know your customers and how they're thinking really well and make really good concrete decisions about what works best for your customer. Now, what I've done I'm showing you authentic vintage posters right now. I did the same thing for another store I built, a Rogue Mechanic, where he actually has bicycle parts straight from the manufacturer. But after he sold out, they don't exist anymore because Mavic only stocks things for 5 years old. So if you have a 10-year-old bicycle wheel, the only place you can get parts is from this guy's website. And a lot of times he doesn't have them. And the same thing, I was explaining with Rita Okrent, these ancient beads. When they're gone, they're gone. So for these stores and other stores that I work with a limited inventory, the way I manage it is once a product is sold, we put it into the gallery or past pieces or whatever you want to call it, but we keep it up, right? But we don't make it part of the main shopping experience. So when you're searching for posters right now, you won't find, even if you search, you won't find the sold out ones, right? We just hide them, but they totally exist. And if I go into down at the bottom here, past pieces, there's 385 past posters. And these are all ones that he's sold. And every one of them, when you click on it, has the out of stock, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why it's not, I think it's, oh, there it goes. Their JavaScript took a second to load up. So they have the out of stock, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes very, very useful. And I do that across all these different stores, you know, because it helps them, as we talked about already, right? So for you, I would keep all of your products up. And you may have products you've never had, right? So of those 30 pieces for Empire, Strikes Back, maybe you've only had 29 of them come through your store, but you'll make that 30th one. Yeah. And maybe that's a super rare one. And people are going to search for it. They're going to come to your website. So it's an SEO thing, right? But then what you want to do with that page is you want to get them to sign up, right? That's the most important thing. But then you also want to get them to engage across the rest of your site. So in this site here, we tagged products by their age, by their category, their country, their size. And then we allow, normally when I have these tag elements on a product page, I don't make them clickable, right? If this product was for sale, I wouldn't allow people to click and see other elements like that because they made a decision to get to the product page they're on. But on a product page of a sold out product, then you have this clickability. So I can see other things that are from 1951 to 1975. So in your store, right, I could totally see, you know, you'd have categories that you'd classify your products by, which might be manufacturer, might be size, you know, Kenner 12-inch figurine. It could be Empire Strikes Back. It could be, you know, 21B, the character's name.
Yeah, a lot of the character is a big one.
Yeah. So I could see all those classifications on your page, and especially in your sold out ones. So they realize that, you know, I love 21B. For those of you who aren't seeing the screen, 21B is actually a robot character in Star Wars. And they click on the 21B and see all other 21B things, right? You might have pins, posters, you know, handbags, whatever kind of stuff. I actually think the shop by character is definitely missing in your current navigation paradigm, right? Show me everything you have that's Chewbacca. Show me everything you have that's C-3PO, that kind of stuff.
Well, and so on the poster site, like that product obviously has more tags than just the ones you're showing to the end customer.
No, actually, that was all we had.
Oh, really?
We were very tight in our taxonomy. But this one has a lot more tags, but they're all the same classifications we talked about.
Okay, so you're just giving the full tag list then.
Yep. Now you can filter that out easily also, right? You could say, don't show these tags or any tag that starts with an underscore. That's easy code. You know, it's custom code to make it happen. But you could only show certain tags if you wanted to.
Okay, that's definitely something I've wanted to do, but is beyond my very low coding abilities because I do have more back end tags that I don't want to surface. So I didn't know how to hide those.
Yeah, there's a number of ways to do that, and as with most things, I'll always say there's no right or wrong. Just, you pick a way to do it, and then you just follow those rules.
Yeah.
So you know, in your site, the sold out part of things, I think is super valuable, right? It draws people in from SEO. Now on this product page, right, you really don't have a lot of information.
No.
And that's because you don't want to sit here and write 5 pages of copy for every single product, right?
Yeah.
Which makes total sense. But here's what you could be doing, right? You could start cookie cuttering some of this content. And what I mean by that is you could have a description about Kenner and say Kenner is a toy company, and I don't know if they're still in existence or not, and they did this and this for these many years, and they were known for their quality, or they had the exclusive rights to Star Wars, so they put out a whole bunch of crap, or whatever the story is, right? That people find interesting. You could have another one of standard content about 21B, And
Mhm.
21B was the character that showed up in the scene here where this thing happened. You could have another piece of content about Empire Strikes Back, right? You
Yeah.
could also have another piece of content about whatever we're going to call this collection of Empire Strikes Back 12-inch figurines from Kenner, right?
Mhm.
And all 30 of them or whatever the number is, right? But you can start creating these buckets of content so that when anybody lands on it, the more content you put on the page,
The
the
better.
more likely it's going to register in SEO, right? It's going to have more information. It's going to be better for SEO purposes. And then when they get there, it gives them all this information about the product. Now, your collectors may know 90% of that already, and that's
Yeah.
probably true. But for the 10% that don't, it's new information, and for the 90% that do, it got them to this page anyways to the SEO purpose of it.
Is there a line on repeating that content that's too much? Like mostly from an SEO point of view, but let's say I have 30 Empire Strikes Back figures and I have a boilerplate set of content for those. Having that same content on 30 pages, is that bad or?
Well, you're probably alluding to the Google duplicate content rules, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't worry about that at all, because what they're looking for is the exact same page or exact same website duplicated, right?
Okay.
If you're just copying and pasting pieces and parts, that should not have any impact on duplicate content stuff.
Okay.
So, and then, we also recommend, so I'm not a fan normally of cross merchandising, right?
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is most of my stores are small store owners, right? They have let's just say they have a product line of 12 products.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of cross promotion going on there. Like
Yeah.
that whole, someone buys hats, you offer them gloves. Makes total sense, right?
Yeah.
But most stores aren't selling like a whole store's worth of things. They have a very small, limited product line.
Hmm.
And the reason a lot of sites, Amazon being the worst offender in the world, and I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but Amazon is the worst user experience shopping store online today.
Yeah.
And Amazon is also the most valuable, highest revenue shopping store online in the history of the galaxy, right? And that's because people don't come to Amazon because of the great shopping experience. The shopping experience actually sucks. It is really hard to find what you're looking for, which is why they cross merchandise everything all day long. And they put it in your job to spend 2 hours finding the best spatula, because they won't tell you which spatula is the best one, right? People go to Amazon because they have everything in the world, and you get it tomorrow, if not today.
Yes.
That's the value prop of Amazon. It is not they give you a comfortable, good, confident shopping experience. So everybody looks at Amazon and goes, well, Amazon puts 1,000 other products on a product page, therefore I'm going to do it. And that's one of those, they're not thinking about how their business is different. So real example for you, I'm looking at Empire Strikes Back. I'm looking at 21B. Is this the best things to promote to me?
Probably not. So that is a manual collection that I'll add things to, because when I started out, I tried doing the I don't know if it's the Shopify built-in or whatever. We also recommend that's supposed to be related products,
Yeah.
and I just, my products like aren't hats and gloves that directly interface that way, and it was just throwing up completely random.
Yeah, totally. Well, because you have inventory of one, and their algorithm uses past sales data, and now it's sold out. So their algorithm goes, I got no data to use, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So here's a different way to think about this, right? Because I actually do think you should have cross merchandising, just not that generic crap, right?
Yes.
And I would, if I was you, I would build a custom cross merchandising solution, which isn't as hard as that just may have sounded, right?
Okay.
So if we go into the game steward, the board game one I mentioned before, and I'm going to go into a product that is part of what we call a franchise. So this franchise, the Batman one's a great example. So I'm going to go to this Batman. This is a collection, and these products are under this umbrella that we just call a franchise. You can even see in the URL, it says Batman franchise for the name of the collection, right?
Yep.
So what we did is we built logic throughout the site in multiple places that leverage that knowledge that these products are related to each other, right? And we had a taxonomy that we defined to make that happen, right? There's some meta fields that we use to determine that this product's part of a collection. And then when I go on the product page, I have this see all Batman's game link, right?
Yeah.
So what the logic of this page is doing, it says, is this game part of a franchise? And it goes, yes, it is. Okay. Are there more than one games in that franchise collection? Yes, there is. Then show the link, right?
Mhm.
And then in the footer of the page, we also show all those products right here. So the other two are already sold out, but we show that, hey, the other two are already sold out because they're part of the same franchise, right?
Mhm.
I wouldn't show sold out games in generic cross merchandising, but at franchise level, I
Yeah.
definitely would. And that creates
Yeah.
that sense of scarcity you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and it's information. It's,
And
here's
even
what
in this one here, right, when I click on this link, see all Batman games, this takes us to a custom view of the collection where I show all the available products, and you can
Mhm.
add them to your box right now, and
That's
all the
nice.
out of stock ones, right?
Yeah.
So imagine your, on your 21B, you got two different
Yeah.
things here, right? One could be, this is part of this 30-piece collection, and let's go
Yeah.
look at that collection and see
Yeah.
what other products are available. And the other could be, here's everything 21B exists in, right? And I
That
can see both those dimensions being really important in your store.
that would
And
be perfect. That would
yeah,
be what I would love. Yeah.
yeah, well, let me just show off a little bit, right? And I'm going to add a product to my cart here.
Yeah.
Actually, the Batman one won't work. Let's say it's already in my cart. And yeah, so this is part of a franchise also. And you can see in the cart, we also, so Lisboa is the name of
Mhm.
the franchise,
Yeah.
right? This one here is a Lisboa also. So
Mhm.
in the cart, we do the exact same thing. And we show products down below that
Mhm.
only exist in the, line items that are franchises in the cart,
Yeah.
right? So, because what we, and once again, this was data driven. We looked at, before we built this, we looked at how many people were buying more than one game at a time,
Yes.
and were those games in the same franchise or different franchises?
Yeah.
And a bulk of the time, they were in the same franchise, and
Mhm.
we're like, that's important to customers, so we're going to do that, right?
Yeah.
So for you, right, getting on this page here, I would do some cross marketing, but it would be about those two accesses we talked about, right?
Yeah.
See everything that's 21B
Yeah.
and see everything that's part of this. And you got to come up with a name for the 30 product collection, right?
Yeah. I already have that as a tag in the collection. So,
Yep.
uh, whatever collection that loose vintage Kenner Star Wars figures, like, so even just the tag ESB on that would bring up
Yep.
just those guys.
Yep. So your cross merchandising could be really useful that way. And
Yeah.
then the other way to think about this, right, on the product level is you could make each one of these a separate product or not. I definitely do not like the fact that I get on this page and two of my variants are sold out. And the
Yeah.
reason for that is, and humans, we're really emotional and we're really fickle about certain things, right?
Yeah.
And the whole buyer's remorse and regret and all that kind of stuff. So if I come here and I look at this one here and I'm like, let's say this one was better condition and the photos just look better.
Yep.
Well, I want that one.
Yeah. I know.
But it's not for sale right now. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I don't want this one. This one's a piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
I want a good one, right? And that's not the case in the example we're showing here. But that's the kind of thing people can start. You're giving them a reason not to buy today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Do you think with
So,
custom code I could have it just hide the sold out?
oh God, yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because yeah, it's like, I have to balance on the back end, as you say. Like, I'm adding 50 to 100 products a week,
Yep.
and so going through and deleting sold out variants would be like a hell of a lot of work. But if it could just hide them, that would be, the perfect solution.
Yeah. And stuff like that, that's all custom code and a theme, right? The
Yeah.
beautiful thing about Shopify is, the theme is 100% adjustable. Now, the theme doesn't drive everything that goes on in your store, right? There's a lot of Shopify code,
Yeah.
there's a lot of app code, but the theme, we have a lot of control with HTML, CSS, Liquid, and JavaScript and all this stuff. You can do a lot of really powerful things.
Yeah.
And so I spend a lot of my time with my clients as I build their stores. It's not putting the theme in place and putting the branding up. That's the easy stuff. The
Yeah.
hard stuff and the more fun stuff for me is the stuff we're talking about, which is how do we automate for your business, right?
Yeah.
How do we merchandise for your business. So I spend a lot of time with my clients like figuring out how their customers think, how they shop, and how we can help them on that journey, right?
And I think like I have a much better handle on that now than when I built the site, for instance, and that was just kind of going off of like let's get it up and like
Totally.
and now a year and a half in, it's like you see your orders, you understand better um, people's mentality in a bit of a way, and
You have data now where you
yeah.
didn't have data in the beginning. You just had assumptions. So you put something, stake in the ground, which is
Mhm.
perfectly fine, right? And
Yeah,
now you've actually proven that you're generating enough revenue that this is sustaining you and your family, and you think you can grow it. So you want to invest in that, right?
yeah, yep.
I think everything you've done to date is like all the right steps at all the right times, right?
Hmm.
And the fact that we're talking now is because you're ready to, go to the next level with your business.
Yeah, exactly.
So another example of helping customers on their journey, right? And
Mhm.
this is a small one, but it's one of my favorite tools in my toolbox, and it's a really simple one. So at the top of your nav, I've got this thing that says Vintage Kenner Toys and Figures, and I click on
Mhm.
that, and it takes me nowhere.
Yeah,
I click on the toys one or the non-toy one, and it takes me
yeah,
somewhere. So what I like for those top level, so when you've got a top level nav item, and this
yeah,
thing below it has like 12 different sub menus, which is
yeah.
totally fine, right? I would have that top level become what I call a list of collections page, right?
Okay.
So what that looks like, if I go to Bixby Chocolate, you can see in their header, I've got this one, drop down chocolate, and there's like 15 different types of chocolate, right?
Yeah,
When you click on the chocolate link, it does not take you to a collection of chocolates.
yeah,
It takes you to a page which lists all the collections under chocolate, snack
yeah,
bars, caramels, Needhams, novelty, brittle, that kind of thing. And if you scroll all the way down, there's an all chocolate button also. But this list of collection page can be a visual representation, or it's a
yeah,
decision making page.
yeah,
Instead of saying, I've got toys, here's all 500 of them, good luck. You're like,
yeah,
what kind
yeah.
of toys are you looking for? Do you want figures? Do you want vehicles? Do you want, that kind of stuff?
Mhm.
And the more choices you give people along the way, the more steps, right, you give people, the more qualified they are when they get down to the lower steps, right? So, you'll hear a lot of best practices. And once again, it all comes back to, I believe that most best practices are real. The only question is, are they real for you, right?
Yeah,
So one best practice I've seen and heard from people, like, I need it to be 3 clicks to add to cart. They land on my site, no more than 3 clicks to add to the cart. And I'm like, that's absolutely fantastic for a one product business.
yeah,
And most people with that best practice are literally selling one product, right? So they don't have to have you choose between all their options.
yeah,
Right? They have to, get you to buy this one thing they have. That's all they've got, right?
yeah,
So, the way I always say it is the number of clicks should be exactly how many it takes for the customer to be confident in the decision they're making, right?
yes,
Um, if you buy a diamond ring online, nobody's buying a diamond ring in 3 clicks.
yeah,
Right? They're spending tons of time and researching, adjusting sliders for the 5 Cs and all that
mhm,
kind of
mhm.
stuff, and understanding prices. They spend a ton of time in that. So in your business also, where people care, right?
Yeah,
This is their passion. This is their hobby. They're going to spend more time on your site than on the normal e-commerce site, right?
yes,
This isn't like buying a spatula for the kitchen. This is their passion, right?
yeah,
So you get the luxury of holding their hand and walking them through things more than
yeah,
most stores do, right?
yeah,
So you could have that. Imagine that top level. You know, I would break this out. You might have it this very product way is I don't know if it's interesting to your customers, right? To me, it's movies and characters and probably product types also. Those are probably your 3 big buckets.
yeah.
Um,
Those two, basically toys and then stuff that isn't toys,
yeah.
is kind of, you know, collectors kind of divide into those two territories a bit. Um, but I
Uh,
find the wording cumbersome, and I couldn't like that's the best wording I could come up with.
yeah, the non-toy vintage Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not sexy.
Well,
Um,
and so let's take another step back, and that is, what is the one line for your store? If you were to tell somebody what you do for a business, and I mean less than 7 words, what is it?
um, I mean, I sell vintage Star Wars toys and other stuff. So the toys, those figures you see there,
No,
they're
no,
the
you're
bread
allowed
and butter.
7 words. What are they? What are your 7 words?
I sell old Star Wars toys.
How come
Um,
it doesn't say that when I land on this homepage?
because it's too product focused and not
Totally.
enough copy.
Totally. Right.
Yeah,
I call it a "You Are Here" sign. Right.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I believe that most homepage banners should not be selling product.
yeah,
Should not be merchandising. Should not be talking about holiday promotions. Right. It should say "You Are Here." So Bixby chocolate's made with a conscience. They
yeah,
sell chocolates that are ethically sourced. Right. If we go into the Game Steward, they their thing is your second chance at Kickstarter games, trusted quality and service.
yeah,
No merchandising in here, right?
yeah,
Authentic vintage posters. Their banner is own a unique piece of history, 100% original, no modern reproductions.
yeah,
This one's very similar to you, right? Where you're not about reproductions at all. They're all authentic and original.
yeah,
This is the kind of thing. And by the way, notice his banner image is a collector, right?
hmm,
There's 5 posters up there.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
like I'm looking at your background right now, and that's what your banner needs to be,
yeah,
right? You need to show somebody who's got that 98-piece complete set, right?
mhm,
Because that's the Nirvana goal these people are going after.
yeah, yeah. I think those last two are like two changes that will happen within a week for sure. That
It's one of those. It changes your site overnight. It
yeah,
really, you're like, this is what we do, right?
yeah,
And you're very clear already. You're just not, putting in your messaging on the homepage, but you're very clear about this is the fences that they operate within.
yeah,
I'm not past the original 3 movies,
yeah,
and I'm not into reproduction stuff. It's all the old stuff from 76 to 83. And that's it.
yeah,
Um, and I don't spend a lot of time on homepages, to be very honest with you. They are not an important page.
hmm,
Your most important page is your product page.
yeah,
And I wish store owners would spend more time on their product page and not on their homepage, right?
mhm,
And so the homepage, anything you put up there is totally fine. I don't get emotional about homepages except for the "You Are Here" sign, right?
yeah,
And then I like to repeat my navigation, right? So
mhm,
I don't like putting products on a homepage. I
yeah.
like putting collections and categories on a homepage. So we're not taking them 2 steps down. We go 1 step at a time, right?
Yeah. One thing I do find is like, so as I say, the toys and figures is the bread and butter. Um, the other non-toy, what I would call oddball stuff,
Yep.
is the weird stuff you would not think that people pay money for, but it's my most profitable stuff by far. And it is very much about discovery on those. So
Yep.
those could be things that you didn't even as a collector knew existed or were not on your radar of, hey, I'm going to buy one of those this week.
Well,
Um,
and that's why cross merchandising by Chewbacca
yeah,
and R2D2 is going to reveal those things, right?
yeah,
Because like I have a friend and she's just into stormtroopers, and I've
yeah,
bought her multiple stormtrooper things, just like a stormtrooper tattoo, right? She's
yeah,
totally into stormtroopers. She doesn't care about anything else in Star Wars. Well, she loves
exactly.
Star
Yeah,
Wars, but it's stormtroopers, right?
yeah,
So she's got a keychain with a stormtrooper. She's got a stormtrooper sticker. Anything stormtrooper she'll look at, right?
mhm,
Um, and I assume that for some of your customers that's true, like they're Chewbacca
yeah,
people or they're
definitely.
R2D2. And that's where your cross merchandising becomes really, really useful, right?
Mhm,
So when they're in the cart and they have the Chewbacca figure in the cart, and they see the Chewbacca, you had this plushie thing that was, kind of cute and funny somewhere on your site. Like they'd see that also, kind of like, oh, that's cute. I
yeah,
was here for a figure, but I'm going to get this other Chewy stuff today too.
mhm,
So and that's the AOV stuff that we talked about before. Which, I said wasn't as important, and it's not, right? Because
mhm,
although if we make more money per order, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
yeah,
But for your business, it's that stuff all after the fact. Like once you see somebody buy something Chewy, then
yeah,
you should start making a Chewy list. And by a list, I mean a segment inside of Shopify for Chewbacca fans, and one for R2D, one for every single character, right? So
Mhm.
then you can start using that in merchandising that way.
So would that be based on they bought a product with a Chewbacca tag, and
Correct.
that's what adds them to that segment?
Yep, exactly.
Just noting that down.
And you can think about, because I think, right, the value of your service to your customers is there's this collection of 96 pieces, right? And they've got 92 of them.
Mhm,
And they probably are looking for the 4 that they're missing.
mhm.
And they're also looking to upgrade the ones they've got from the poor quality one to the
Yep,
better quality one, right? So you've got all these different ways to look at it. Is it Chewbacca? Is it Empire Strikes Back? Is it the Kenner collection?
yeah,
And the more you have that information in your product catalog, tag
yes,
that way, right?
yeah.
Then the more you get to use that information downstream in Klaviyo.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Yeah, like, I'm just picturing, yeah, more segmented emails and stuff like that
Totally,
to,
totally.
if I add it within a certain category of products, a whole bunch of inventory there that may be not of interest to 90% of my list, uh, but the ability to easily punch out an email to those people, that would be good.
Well, and you can automate a lot of this, right? So one of the negatives with Klaviyo is you can't do a lot of if-then statements inside of an email,
Okay, yeah,
but you can do if-then statements inside of a flow. And what I mean by that is
yeah,
you could have a flow that says post-purchase, right? Someone just made a purchase. And it'd be nice in the email if you could say, if they bought Chewbacca, then show this Chewbacca collection. But you can't do that in the email, but you can do it
mhm,
in the flow. So the first if-then loop could be if the product, if the cart contents contains Chewbacca,
yeah,
then show them this email. And that email is just other Chewbacca things.
yeah, yeah,
And then this flow could literally have 100
yeah,
if then statements in it. If Chewbacca, if Han, if Leia, if Mark Hamill, all that stuff. And, you know,
yeah,
to build that is really, really hard, right? That's a lot of work, a lot of manual if then statements. But the great thing is, once you do it,
yeah, it's
it's
done.
done, and you get to benefit from that forever, right?
Yeah,
So I would start out with like the top 5 characters or the top 5 fringe
mhm,
characters, whatever, and build a
yeah,
little flow that does that, and see if it engages people or not. And
yeah,
if it does, every week, set a goal to add 5 more characters to that flow
yeah.
or something to
Well,
that effect.
and I can definitely see it like under that non-toy section. Like there's those sections there where there's hardcore people who are into those things. Like uh, I have vintage vinyl from Europe, vintage records, and people who are into that very into it. Other people not at all. So just setting up a flow even just for that category of items,
Yep.
uh, that would be huge.
And in your world of CLV, which is more important than AOV, right?
Yeah,
The only CLV tool you have is your email.
yeah,
So leverage it to the max. Your flows should be extremely complex.
yeah.
And
I
but
do
you're not
find
going to get go
I
ahead.
find social is a is also a driver of lifetime value, just in that uh,
Yes.
I people who I guess prefer getting their updates that way or whatever, but are
Yep.
consistent customers, and I can tell they're coming after social posts and coming
Yep.
back.
No, that makes total sense. I was just thinking on site, but you're totally right. Your social networks are also good CLV tools. But I would see your Klaviyo flow as being very complex. But no one makes complex flows overnight, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You evolve them. You come up with an idea like we were just talking about, and you test it. You don't do the whole thing.
Yeah.
You test it and see if it works. And if people are clicking, people are buying, then they're like, oh, this sounds like it's, and then you keep adding more and more and more, right?
Mhm.
But your business, I could see, building out these landing pages for the different, the Kenner Empire Strikes Back,
Yeah.
you know, design that to be more than just a collection page, but a little bit of a
Yes.
landing page, which talks about that, series of products, the pros and cons about them. I'd find a couple of YouTube videos that talk about it and just embed them in your site.
Yeah.
So people can learn more about that stuff, because I'm sure that stuff exists out there, even if you didn't create it.
Yep.
Um, and just make that more complete and more holistic for them, right? And then
Yeah,
when somebody,
yeah, I can see that collections pages as more landing pages has been something uh, I've wanted to do, and just up the content on a collections page from an education point of view.
yes,
I think it's
yes.
like really useful content, and reinforces the brand, and just even helps bring newbie collectors, kind of make them a little more willing to spend money.
Yeah, and education, right? So,
Yeah.
I'm a full believer in education, 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 right? Which you obviously see because I do a podcast, right? I
Yes.
share information,
Yeah.
but I find that it benefits me and my customers, right?
Yeah.
Because not everybody likes me, right? I'm very direct about certain things, very matter of fact, and I'm not the right agency for some people, but
Yeah.
they get to see that ahead of
Yeah.
time by like I like the way this guy sounds or I don't, right? It's one of those self-filtering mechanisms. The more you put out
Exactly.
there, the better the conversations you have because you've already put yourself out there and
Yeah.
filtered out the ones you don't want to have conversations with.
Yeah. You're
Um,
attracting the right crowd.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk. Two more things I want to talk about before I let you go here.
Yep.
We've been jabbering for a little bit of time. The first one is your street cred, right? And what I mean by that, I think an about page is super important. And what I always say to my clients, and I mean this literally, is I want to see babies and dogs on your about page. Because your about page is
Yep.
about human beings, right?
Mhm.
So if I go to Titan Survival, for example, I gave them that advice. I want to see babies and dogs. And if I go to their about page, what I'm going to see is baby,
Yeah.
kids,
Family. Yeah.
wildlife, dog, with the people also. But
Yep.
these people seem really authentic and real, way better than a corporate photo does, right?
Yes. Yep.
And in your business, right, there's probably a lot of fake stores out there or a
Yeah.
lot of fly-by-night scams. You even mentioned them earlier. So, one of the things
Or
you're trying to do here, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, oftentimes too, in my niche, stores and people who do this as a living are seen as greedy,
Yep,
anti-collector sort of people, and I'm very much not that, and obviously want to position myself that way.
yep. So here, like you already told me, you got a daughter and then two twins, and
Mhm.
you got a wife, and you're living in Canada. None of that's coming through here.
Yeah, no, I wrote that 18 months ago when I was building the site, and I don't think I have touched it since, which is
Yeah,
bad.
and so here, you you got two things here. There's two about pages you need to build, right? At
Mhm.
least two. One is about you, about Mike, about the people at the company. If your kids are packing boxes, I would show photos of that, right?
Okay. Yep.
If your
Yeah.
wife is the accountant, I would show that because a lot of stores try to seem bigger than they are
Yeah.
when the exact opposite is what your customer wants,
Yeah.
right? If your customer wants some big anonymous company, they're going to be on Amazon or eBay, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
They're not there today. They're on your store because they don't want that big anonymous corporate crap. They
Mhm.
want to deal with a human being. So be a human being, right?
Yeah.
And you are, right? You come across really well, and I'm sure you have a great story. Just double down on it here. And then
Yeah.
your second about page could be about your process,
Yeah.
right? Where you get your things, it's only authentic stuff, it's only
Yeah.
vintage, it's guaranteed, it's warranted. If we look
Yeah.
at these guys here, the game steward, they built this what we do page because trying for them to explain to people, well, we participate in the Kickstarter pre-order ecosystem can be a complex thing to wrap your head around.
Yep.
So they go through this big long page with beautiful graphics, right?
Mhm.
Which explains the whole process step by step.
Yep.
And then the beautiful thing is once they built this, we got to use this like in their welcome series for email flow. We broke this up into 4 or 5 emails and sent it out in the welcome series to educate them and that kind of stuff. So you may want to talk about you and the people at your company, and then your process and how you get products, how you price them, and be transparent about those kind of things.
Yeah.
So those can be two different about pages, my only point, right?
Well, and two birds with one stone, because I do also need to improve my welcome series from the generic one it is right now.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing. Once you
Yeah.
build all this content, everything you put on your website, you're putting in your emails also, right?
Yeah.
The hard part about all of this is creating content.
Yes, exactly.
And all my customers, they nod their head all the time when I have these conversations. They're like, this is great, this is great, this is great. But then when it comes to creating the content, I'm showing you that my clients who do create the content, because a lot of them don't, because it's hard, it takes time, right?
Yeah.
And in reality, you just can't outsource that. You can't hire somebody on Upwork to write your about page for you.
Yes.
It's not going to seem authentic. They could get the job done, but it's not going to be authentic because they don't know your space, they don't know your customers, and all the little nuances and the vernacular that Star Wars geeks use and all that kind of stuff. You need to write a lot of that yourself.
Yeah, I think one of my goals for this year too is carving out the time away from the day-to-day business stuff to be doing the growing the business stuff like this. Like you get, so caught up with answering emails and doing this little thing or that little thing.
Well,
I find it really hard to carve out.
I totally agree. So for me, right, I do a podcast episode every other week.
Yeah.
And I'm not allowed to go to bed on Sunday night. My podcast comes out on Wednesday. I can't go to bed Sunday night until my podcast is done. Right. And that is the only way it gets done. If I just, waited till I felt like I had time, it would never happen. So for you, I would, open up your calendar, block out 4 hours on Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
Because Monday you're too busy getting ready for the week. Thursday, Friday, you're too busy closing out the week. Tuesday morning, block out 4 hours and call it content creation and force yourself to only do that during that time frame. Or an hour or whatever the right amount of time is. But totally put it in your calendar and then follow it in your calendar, right? I call that operationalizing it, because if you don't, it's not going to happen, right? It's always important, but it's never urgent.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how I fell into a Friday email. Was it kind of forced me to get all the new products up by Friday, and I don't leave work until that email goes out. So
no, forcing functions are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to mention here is your branding, right? So below your header, there's no branding in your store.
No.
Right. So on yours, I don't recommend this a lot, but I've started recommending it more. I would go aggressive in branding. So by aggressive in branding, like the Game Steward went, in my mind, aggressive in branding, right? They hired a graphic artist that drew all their imagery. They're just absolutely beautiful. And we have these dominant colors that are strong. And you can see the colors in the header and the footer and that kind of stuff. On Authentic Vintage Poster, we went dark background, which I absolutely love in this store. It works really, really well. But when you see this page, it smacks you, where you're at, right? And when the emails come out and they have the same backgrounds and the same colors, where you're at. For yours, right, you've got the blue, and that blue is kind of a rebel color. I would put it with a little bit of orange also. I don't know why I'm thinking blue and orange, but I think maybe the X-Wing fighters have blue and orange or something, blue, orange, and white. But I would even on this, right, if you want, so I would go blue, orange, white, or I would go definite Star Wars, black and yellow, right, for colors. Right, so, you could do this type of stuff, right? I actually found this Star Wars font generator, right? You could have this type of thing going on, right? And it's really easy to put in backgrounds that don't infringe on Star Wars IP, which you're very aware of. You cannot do, right? Because Disney will come after you and crush your soul. So, but if you go on to Shutterstock and just search for Star Wars background, you get a whole bunch of generic things. Like these, I think, are fabulous, right? I could even see making because you got the X-Wing fighters and they've got these little panels and lines and stuff. I could even see making a background that looks sort of like an X-Wing fighter zoomed in a little bit. You got textures and rivets and that kind of shit. And just bringing that home. So this page, which is very, very, very white in background, if you had just a slight, background thing, or you could just put it in the footer in the background or in the header in the background. But I would use a little bit of imagery to really set the tone and make me feel like I'm a little more immersed in the Star Wars environment.
One thing I was thinking of for the redesign was having kind of not kind of background images, but kind of like those parallax between section images and reaching out to, there's a lot of guys on Instagram doing really cool photography of the toys.
I've
And
seen the Lego guys.
yeah, so it's kind of the same thing where they got them set up doing a scene and stuff, and
Yep,
like super cool lighting and angles,
totally,
and,
totally.
and putting some of that in the site.
So on this store here, this is years ago. I built this store, Viz Art Inc., and he does it's drawings that he draws with a pen, right? It's just with
Okay.
ink and different color pens, and it's really meticulous, sitting there for
Yeah.
hours drawing these little lines. But the
Yeah.
cool thing is, when you look at a drawing of the Space Needle or something,
Yep.
inside that drawing of the Space Needle, there's all these little sub images in all the lines, right?
Mhm.
So for his, if you can see it on the site,
Yeah, I
the
see it. Yeah.
background image is actually the lines. So, and you can look at it like there's a Statue of Liberty in there, there's this and that, and it really sets a tone, and it's really subtle, right?
Yep.
But it's just a more complete and a more holistic experience, right? Your store today looks like, I have a whole bunch of products I want to sell you,
Hmm.
which is fine. Right? That,
Yep.
that is the fact, right? But to take that to the next level and go from a store that sells Star Wars products to a Star Wars store, right? You think about taking that branding, right? And the way I explain it to my clients is, because we spend a lot of time and energy on these things with some of
Yeah.
my clients, is and they're like, is this really worth all the time, to build out this about page and make these graphics and all this other stuff? And if you're a store making $1,000 a month, no, it's not worth your time and energy.
Hmm.
But if you're a store making $50,000 a month, this is how you differentiate yourself from your competition, right?
Yeah.
Because very few stores do not have competition. Some have complete direct competition, and I bet you in
Mhm.
your space, there's people doing the exact same thing that you're doing, right?
Well, the white is kind of an effort to be the antithesis of the other sites in my industry are mostly very like, old PHP, super busy online stores with,
Yes.
42 banners flashing different things and 3 sidebars and all that sort of thing. So I
Yep.
did consciously, when I was building it, and also due to skill level, go with very clean and neat. But bringing the branding to the forefront is something I've wanted to do for a long time. And the way you describe it, it makes me think like I jokingly write my emails and a lot of the copy like as if we're in the rebel base on the fourth moon, like
Yes.
that's where the store is located,
Totally.
in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way. But I could see bringing that aspect in, like that last background you just showed me, and kind of that kind of abstract-y thing that makes it look like it's part of the Star Wars universe itself.
Totally. Totally agree. Right. Because one of the things Star Wars is famous for, right, is
Mhm.
3 environments per movie.
Yeah.
Now, one of them is usually snowy, but you don't have an environment here, right? In
Yeah.
Star Wars, you always feel like you're immersed on this desert planet, this
Yeah.
ocean planet, this frozen planet. Here, I don't feel immersed. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Very right.
because it's Star Wars, I'd make it more immersive.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that's if you wanted to keep it white, there's nothing wrong with that either. Right.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
think I'd probably stay white E, but I like that, like what you were talking about, the close up of the panels and stuff like that. I could totally see something cool like that. Yeah, I would love it to feel like it's a store in the Star Wars universe.
yes. Yes. Like, absolutely. Like you've got here with this image here. Right? Like
Hmm.
I love that. Right. That is so cool. That kind of stuff is just fun, right?
Yeah,
And what happens is, does that get you a sale today versus your competition? Maybe, maybe not. But you're subconsciously, your customers notice the difference,
yeah,
right? I don't think they consciously notice these things. I think it's subconscious. Like when you go to a store, you're like, they spend time and money doing this. I can tell. And
yeah,
that means their quality, right? Like if you go to Allbirds and look at their website, they just went public for like $2 billion somewhere. They're on Shopify.
yeah,
It's beautiful. Their website is amazing. The amount of time they spend for one page, you're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. But that's how you get to be $1 billion business.
yeah.
And you do it a step at a time, right? And
Hmm.
you're at the point now where I actually think the merchandising stuff we talked about is way more important than the branding things.
Hmm.
Like, letting people find the products, I would make that first step, right? If I was to prioritize your goal for
Yep.
2022, I'd say, look at the merchandising things that we talked about with, the concept of franchises or characters and cross merchandising and tagging, figure all that stuff out, do a
Yeah.
redesign around that, get those tools in place.
Mhm.
And then, if you do, branding at the same time or later, but,
Yeah. Well, I want to structurally get it to where uh, I want to, so that I can do kind of the redesign and moving to a new theme and all that investment, with the stuff that can be figured out ahead of time.
yep.
Rather than like necessarily sticking everything in the copy deck, I just might as well upgrade what I got on the site now, and then take that content over to the new redev
Yeah.
site.
Well, and the way I figure out most of that stuff is not ahead of time. It's in the middle of the store, right?
Yeah.
Like I have clients all the time who are like, I want to do this and that. And I'm like, I need products, right? If I don't have products, I can't do anything because, you'll have a concept. We're going to do this thing and you do it, but then you put the real data inside that thing and it doesn't work, right? So
Yeah.
I find it's always easier to build inside of your store. And, you can have, a new offline theme off to the side so nobody sees it kind of thing. But you need to have the product data there to see the result of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of like whiteboarding the navigation paradigm and all that kind of stuff. I'd rather do it in the store and iterate on it. It's definitely iteration, right?
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
All right, we are. I'm about wrapping up here. We've been going forever. Do you have any questions before we go?
No, I'm like kind of looking through my list, and I think a lot of stuff we've covered. I don't know. I do a lot of draft orders. Is there any magic sauce there to make that better or anything like that?
Not that I know of. I'm sure there's an app or two that does stuff. Draft orders. Most people are using them for wholesale. You're using it because you get customers from other channels.
Yeah.
Is there a way to bring them to the store directly instead of draft orders?
Well, it's because like you say, you get items in that are higher value. So sometimes those higher value items I will auction on Facebook in specific Facebook groups, or just sell them there because it just works better than on the site, like for that particular product. And then before I would just take PayPal payment, and then when I focused on everything goes through the site, I do draft orders because at least they're going to hopefully check off that marketing emails checkbox, and I get them.
Well, you have that opt out, right? Not opt in, I hope.
Yes, I have it up. I haven't actually gone through the flow personally, probably. I know it's checked automatically usually. I just don't know on draft orders if it is checked.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it is opt out right now. You've got it set up the right way. And by the way, the branding of this you can definitely bring up to speed too.
Yes, definitely.
Which is easy to do. Yeah, so it sounds like you need that auction functionality in your store sooner rather. If you're auctioning already on Facebook, which is not built for auctioning, I would look at, as you're doing your redesign, build that auction into your redesign as one of the features you're adding, whether that's through manual code or through an app. I don't think I've done auction. I've done some interesting things sort of like that, but I don't think I've actually done a literal auction inside of Shopify. I bet you there's an app that does it, or there's some custom code you can put together to make it happen. And so, so take that Facebook traffic, and instead of auctioning on Facebook, bring them to your website. Assuming that it sells the same rate or higher kind of thing, and try to get those people onto your site and capture them.
Yeah. Well, the Facebook thing is to me, it's a bit of a marketing thing as well, in that, I'm putting stuff up there. People are like, hey, that dude's got cool stuff. Maybe I should check out what else he's got on his site, or stuff like that. So I probably would never move completely away from it, because that's honestly where the community is of Star Wars collectors. So it's one way in which I get to interact with that community. But yeah, I mean, draft orders do seem like very much like a forgotten Shopify functionality that really has never improved at all. And
there are a ton of those, right? In
Shopify.
Unfortunately, like photo management is ridiculous inside of Shopify, but it is what it is until they fix it, right? There's nothing we can do but live with what they've given us, because there's a lot more good than bad in the Shopify platform. So But no, there's no secret sauce on draft orders that I can tell you about to help you
Okay, cool.
get better with it. You're probably maximizing what you're doing already.
Yeah. All righty.
Well, it was really good talking to you today. I appreciate you spending the time.
Well, I appreciate it too. I've got I got a list of notes here and a bunch with really big stars next to them that are the priorities to get on. So I really really appreciate this time.
I'm glad it was useful for you. And the fact you already said prioritization. I think that's the most important thing. You can't do everything, so
Yeah.
prioritizing what are the big ones like auction, new navigation paradigms, cross
Yep.
merchandising. Those to me are the big ones.
Yep.
Over the branding, which is always fun, but the product discovery first.
Yeah.
And then once I got that in place, I would be doing email and tons and tons of email.
Yeah. That's what I got started.
Excellent.